Welcome back, guys, for another m.o.a.b with every gun, and today it's with the MP9. It's actually the same day today as, it's funny saying, today it's with the MP9, because I know you guys are probably watching it on a different day, but for me, I'm actually watching it on the same day as I've just finished doing the FMG9. I also did the PKP Pwnsweet today, and I've done the G18 today. So why am I going nuts? Why am I doing so many m.o.a.b videos today? Well, I've mentioned it already in my PKP Pwnsweet video. Corpse Gray is encroaching ever so slowly. No, he's actually coming quite fast to doing all the videos and chucking him up on his YouTube channel, because he doesn't have to do any commentaries and stuff. And that'd be a little bit unfair that he's got it up before I have it up, so that's why I'm doing it like crazy. Oh, look at this, a nice double here. Pretty cool. All right. So yeah, MP9, single MP9 instead of a Kimbo as usual, because Kimbo would just be way too easy. But again, like with the Kimbos, you can't aim down the sight, whereas with singles you can. So it's something to consider, I suppose. It's not necessarily better to have a Kimbo. You can see here that Hydroxide's in the match, so he's not such a bad player. If you're listening, dude, you are pretty good. So. It's not like just against some nubs and stuff. Sure, there's only like 3 players on the other team at the moment, but at least it's 3. At least one of those 3 is a pretty decent player, so it's pretty cool. All right. So last time I talked about why us power gamers get shafted by Nintendo, and I talked about how basically we get the slower, lamer, worse, less featured versions of games on our virtual console. We get full retail games sometimes, and missing features like online multiplayer. The quality sometimes is bad. We get like blurrier graphics or something like that, slowdown, etc., etc. And yeah, I talked about that. Today I'm going to talk about different revisions of hardware. So that's another factor, another thing about Nintendo that I really don't like. See, when the DS first came out, I actually bought one of those old fat ones, the really crappy ones, which you pretty much don't see around these days at all. I think, Nintendo would prefer that we kind of forgot that they existed, I suppose. And with a good reason, they were lame. They had, like, really bad brightness. They were chunky. They were heavier, really heavy. And they just didn't look very stylish at all. They looked really old and yuck. They looked something out of the 90s. And yet it came out in 2005. So, yeah, I actually bought one of those because when I first saw the DS, I really liked it. And I lie. I didn't actually buy one, but my brothers did. And I was really close to buying one, but I didn't need to, because like I said, my brothers had one, and so I just played theirs. But the truth of the matter is, I would have bought one, if they didn't buy one and I couldn't use theirs. So, I was that close to buying one, and I'm glad I didn't, because then they released the DS Lite. And I thought, well, okay, this isn't new. Nintendo's done this many times before. They did it with the Game Boy Advance. They did it with the original Game Boy. They released the original Game Boy, then the Game Boy Color, then the Game Boy Pocket, and then, I don't know, some other ones, Game Boy Micro, whatever the heck it was. Or was that was the Game Boy Advance, that's right. And then they released the Game Boy Advance, and that had, the original Game Boy Advance, which was that, I can't remember how to explain it, but it looked like a bit like a Game Gear or something, I guess. And then they came up with the Game Boy Advance SP, Game Boy Advance Micro, or Game Boy Micro, whatever the heck it's called, etc., etc. So it's not the first time they've ever done it. And with the DS Lite, it was the natural evolution, I suppose. But then they came out with the DSi, and that was annoying, because the DSi came out with extra features, came out with cameras, which the original DS didn't have. And so that meant that you then had games and stuff that could utilize those that that you couldn't play on the original DS, which was really sucky. I didn't like that at all. So this hardware revision thing, I really don't like it when companies do that. Like, you see, even Microsoft and Sony have done it. Microsoft now have, I think it's inbuilt 802.11n wireless Wi-Fi on their Xbox console, which is insane. And plus, you always get like bigger hard drives and just more features and all that kind of stuff, and it's always for the same price. So we kind of get like screwed over for being the early adopters. And I think as hardcore gamers who usually buy the stuff on day one, it's just not something that should happen. Like, it's not fair to us, I think. You know, it's ridiculous. But I mean, I suppose there's two alternatives that the companies can do. They can, you know, keep the console the same, and then as manufacturing costs decrease and, you know, all that kind of stuff, as they sell more consoles and whatever, as it becomes cheaper basically to make the console, they can, you know, lower the price, which personally I prefer they did, and just left it at that, and they kept the same console but lowered the price. Or, you know, they can go the option that they have gone, and that is to, rather than lower the price, you know, include new features. So increase like the number, like the amount of gig that you get in a hard drive, gigabyte that you have in a hard drive. You know, include like wireless features like the Xbox has. Make it smaller, make it cooler, make it blah 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 blah. You know, all that stuff can happen still, making it smaller and cooler. But I don't think they should ever include new features, because then what happens is you exclude the people that originally bought the first consoles, and I don't think that's fair. Especially if you're a hardcore gamer, you know, you picked up the console on day one. And that's what I really like about the Wii, is that the Wii has stayed the same, essentially, you know, from the start. And in fact, really what's happened is you've lost some functionality with the new designs. You know, like they removed, for example, the ability to play GameCube games on the Family Edition of the Wii. Just on that note, if the new edition of the Wii is called the Family Edition, then what the heck was the original one? I mean, geez, you know, you got all these party games and stuff. This Family Edition has, like, less games, theoretically, because you can't play GameCube games. So, yeah, it's weird. So maybe the Family Edition just doesn't play, like, Resident Evil 4 Wii, or, I don't know, maybe it doesn't play Call of Duty or something, because it's not a family game. I don't know, whatever. It's a bit of a joke there. Yeah, so like I really hate how they take out, how they add extra new features. I think it's okay to take them out, you know, because then you're sort of rewarded, I suppose. And you know, that's exactly what they did, I guess, with the original PS3. Like the PS3 had a whole bunch of stuff. You could play backwards compatible this and backwards compatible that. Yeah, well, I mean, the original PS3, the very first one, you could actually get one that played PS2 games, completely backwards compatible with PS2 games. Whereas then they took that out, you know, because they said it was too expensive, so that they could lower costs and stuff. And I'm okay with that, because the people who originally bought it didn't lose anything when the new one came out. You know, they didn't gain, the new ones didn't have new features, so to speak. But you know, the slimmer one, for example, as well, the one that came out recently, the slim one is well, not so recent anymore, I suppose. But that one there didn't really add anything either. You know, it just had a bigger hard drive, let's say. But that wasn't such a big deal, because you could actually improve, you know, increase the size of the hard drive yourself quite cheaply. I just use a regular laptop hard drive. So that's okay. But looks like I've been cut short, so I'm going to have to continue on, I guess, in the next one. But thanks for watching, guys, and have a good day as usual. Subscribe, rate, and comment if you haven't, and catch you later.